This will hopefully be a quick critique. A critique, right? Oh boy. Who among us? So today we're talking about The Conjuring 2. It'll hopefully be quick, as I said, because I did a whole video on The Conjuring 1. And I think I pretty much nailed it there. Yeah, definitely watch my my critique of the first Conjuring film, because The Conjuring 2 is more of that kind of a compositional manifesto. It's more of that. And by more of it, I mean it's a continuation of James Wan's premise for horror, which is finding a new kind of horror. Making horror do things that it's not supposed to do, or is unexpected from the genre. First and foremost, the first Conjuring film is, I consider it to be a flawless film. I think it's a film about filmmaking. I think that conjuring is another word for filmmaking, so far as James Wan is concerned. Parts of the language, the filmic language, does transfer over to The Conjuring 2. You get these wonderfully ornate, elaborate, handheld Steadicam shots that seem to be like a spirit gliding through this house, but it's always the director gliding through the house, and you're always aware of it being made. You're always aware that there is an architect, that there is a design to the Conjuring films, which, yeah, that's something quite different from horror. It's not necessarily an immersive film. It immerses you in the idea that it knows that you know that this isn't happening, that this is all incredibly cinematically contrived. Gets you that through that. The Conjuring 2 is not nearly as good as The Conjuring 1. The Conjuring 1 is flawless. The Conjuring 1 is a stunningly, to me, immaculate, perfect horror film. I really do think so. The Conjuring 2, it's not a waste of time. It's a very, very good movie. A very good movie. James Wan really takes us in a couple different directions. And he's not necessarily concerned with what's truly horrific, but with what's at the moral center of the film. A lot of haunted house films are about a family dealing with strain, struggling to stay together, to stay positive together, to feel like an actual family. Most haunted house films are about a marriage or a family dealing with strain, and through the events of the film, they come together again, and they're an even stronger family, almost on account of the hardships that they faced. That's the long, enduring subtext of most haunted house stories, because a house is supposed to be a home, and a family is supposed to make the home come to life. And if there are negative qualities in a family or relationship that are being unchecked and undiagnosed, that would make this house a house will come to life no matter what. But in the world of horror, it will play on those negative emotions until they are solved and they are figured out. So the most interesting parts of The Conjuring 2, these were also done in The Conjuring 1. Apologies if you could hear my phone going off in the background. But it's like in The Conjuring 1, when Ed helps work on the car for the parents, and Lorraine is talking to the kids and talking about the benefits and miracles of the modern family. This is done in The Conjuring 2 in quite incredible ways. Like, the most memorable part of The Conjuring 2 isn't a gag, isn't a scare, isn't some sort of terrifying horror sequence. The most memorable and unforgettable part of The Conjuring 2 is Ed Warren playing a song for this family that's been haunted, playing Fools Rush In, playing Elvis, and they all start singing along. It is not a horror moment. It is not a moment that typically belongs in horror, but it belongs in James Wan's reinterpretation of horror films, in James Wan's reinvention of genre films, of genre work. That's the most memorable part of the film, and it's a beautiful part of the film. It's kind of a remarkable and stunning aspect of the film. And this isn't to say that the gags, the sequences, the scares don't work. James Wan is still exploiting the fact that you scare an audience in a horror film by abusing their trust. You get them to trust you about the geography, the layout of a house, and then you abandon that and imbibe the film with spatial impossibilities and abuses your trust of the filmmaker, or it allows you to see the geophysical relation of a specter or an object in the corner of a room, only to have it jump out of a place where the audience would not expect it to jump out of, because it's an actual spatial impossibility. That's how horror scares you, and he exploits it, and he's very blatant about it. But he's also a genius. He does it so well that you really appreciate having your trust abused by James Wan. That speaks to his mastery that he absolutely does possess. The Conjuring 2 is not nearly as scary as The Conjuring 1, nor is it trying to be. It's not trying to be as frightening as The Conjuring was. The Conjuring is the first step in this direction that Wan was taking. I think there are a few missteps in The Conjuring 2 on Wan's way to a new kind of horror film. There are a few missteps. So I think The Conjuring 1, he nailed it. He went a little bit too far in The Conjuring 2. The Conjuring was as far as he needed to go in this relentlessly innovative new direction. The Conjuring 2 takes it a few steps further, to a point where it's almost unrecognizable as a horror film at its most impactful. The most impactful parts of this film aren't jump scares, aren't these intricately designed gruesome moments of terror and ghostly haunts. The most impactful part of this film are the incredibly theatrical moments of bonding with this family, and the incredibly tender and almost hypersensitive love that exists between the Warrens. Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, still killing it, absolutely slaying these roles. Absolutely. The Conjuring 2 is more a family love story than it is a horror film. These aspects were in The Conjuring 1, but they were there in a kind of duplicitous sort of way. I do think it was still earnest, that it was about a family growing stronger, a marriage becoming stronger after some truly mortifying events. I do think it was still there, but James Wan's had his tongue firmly placed in his cheek, or else he had his fingers crossed. He had an ace up his sleeve where he was like, yeah, I want you to feel comfort, I want you to feel safe, because I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to make you feel so confused about where your emotions should be that you're going to feel simultaneously ecstatic and shockingly hollow as a result of The Conjuring 1. The Conjuring 2, Wan is focusing this film. It's still a masterful direction, but like I said, there are a couple of missteps here and there that take away from the horror of it. But I think that this film will be better in retrospect. When we look back on it, we'll go, oh, these pioneering moments, these absolute golden moments of the genre were here. We just weren't able to appreciate them in real time. Not to their fullest maximum potential. Because this film is saying a lot, and it's doing a hell of a lot. it doesn't do as much as The Conjuring 1 did. The Conjuring 1 blew my fucking mind. The Conjuring 1 stole my heart, took my breath away. The Conjuring 1 is a flawless fucking movie, and it's a perfect horror film. The Conjuring 2 is a deliberately imperfect horror film, and a rather inspiring film about a family's values being compromised, being attacked, and then being saved. This is James Wan's voice, and it's startlingly, I think, important and necessary. And that's incredible. I love that there's a whole fucking Conjuring universe, an interconnected universe of these fucking movies. I do prefer, like, teasing Annabelle in the first film as opposed to the Nun in The Conjuring 2. It felt a lot less obvious in The Conjuring 1. It added so much flavor, added a whole another depth, a whole another, like, whole another layer of just compositional and metaphorical, symbolic style to The Conjuring. It really didn't feel like any sort of setup, because I'm not sure if it absolutely was one in the first film. In The Conjuring 2, you definitely feel that certain elements are being placed for future development. That's also why this film, I think, will be better appreciated in years to come. The Conjuring 1 can stand on its own forever as one of the greatest horror films ever made. Ever fucking made. No question. If you want to argue that, get the fuck out of here. Stop acting so fucking cool and get silly. This movie is fucking... The Conjuring's insanely good. And The Conjuring 2 is an experiment in form. An experiment in tone. An experiment in themes, really. Thematically, horror films aren't supposed to be able to do this. But it did. But the fact that it went so far into its own compass, its own moral and thematic compass, it changed the horror of the film. It begins as a horror film, and it doesn't end that way. It went so far into a sentimental direction that it changed its own genre without you realizing it was happening. The Conjuring 2 is very good, but The Conjuring 2 is almost an anti-horror film. James Wan may have made the best anti-horror film here.